Week 3 is upon us, and you know what that means here on the Splash Play channel. Time to dig in and give you our final takes. And that means looking at projections from Stochastic, looking at ownerships as well, running ETR's data one more time, seeing what the cash game optimal is, what ETR sims were saying. We'll hop over to Stochastic, see what their sims are saying. And by the end of this video, you'll have the industry's final takes along with mine as well. Heading into NFL Week 3, let us get into it here. Dog, get on your bed. Why are you wandering? Just fucking start wandering the moment my voice is going. I appreciate all you guys being here. It's a Sunday morning. Wife's heading out of town to do work this week in LA. So I am swimming right now, but have no fear. We will get into things as we always do. And that includes the top projections right now. Christian McCaffrey in the number 1 spot. Basically right now for Christian McCaffrey, his ownership's going to get squeezed a little bit. I would say same thing for Bijan Robinson because the fact that we have very obvious Jordan Mason chalk, very obvious developing Kenneth Walker chalk, the guy in the thumbnail. If you don't recognize his face, it is a doubtful tag for Zach Charbonnet. So does it mean that Kenneth Walker gets all the workload these two guys have had? Not necessarily. George Holani could come in, maybe take a few touches away. Has been a guy that has played pretty well in the preseason. The team seems like, dog, go to your bed. Go. Please don't tear down the laptop. Nope. Oh, this dog is killing me lately. She's peeing in the house. She's being a monster with Luca. It is not a fun time to have the dog in the studio. Go to your bed. To your bed. Go. Jesus. Christian McCaffrey, though, getting squeezed by those guys. I'm sorry. It's not the professional content I want to do here, but I am in a hellscape for the next few days. That said, yes, we early GM, yes. GMs to everybody here as I yell at the dog. People joining the stream. So I try desperately to get my puppy to not knock down all the electronics. McCaffrey, though, still a very valid play. If you could find a way to play McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson, you'll be greatly off the beaten path of the chalk this week on DraftKings. Stochastic ETR, they're going to force feed people. Kenneth Walker going to force feed them Jordan Mason. Doesn't mean those guys are bad plays. Doesn't mean anything like that. But it does mean that there's going to be a lot of ownership going to those guys. So to think about getting off that beaten path, paying up at running back, at least for one of the positions, certainly there's going to be a good amount of people that play one of McCaffrey, one of Bijan in the flex, in addition to Mason and Kenneth Walker. So just think about how the people are going to build is an important thing that we talked about a little bit on Friday. Because sometimes people think they're like a delicate genius about how they're going to build their lineups. And look, even I, as somebody that has invested so much time in this, I'm very aware of the fact that a lot of my thoughts tend to be the exact same as a vast majority of the field in a given week. It's sort of how I feel like for this week, where there's not a lot of ways you're going to get super creative playing, McCaffrey, Bijan with Jordan Mason, with Kenneth Walker. A lot of lineups are going to start with those 2 cheap running backs, so just keep that in mind with everything you do. Even when you see McCaffrey having the highest projection on the week. And yeah, she's been fixed. She was fixed before we even adopted her. It's a healthy projection on Herbert. We'll get there in a minute. Bijan Robinson, your number 2 back here. So McCaffrey and Bijan, your 2 guys up top. Over 22 fantasy points. Bijan, the big thing that stands out for him to me is that the fact he's gotten 100 yards, whether it is in a game where he's getting shut down in the run game, he gets there in the pass game. But it's a game where the pass game's not there quite as much. He gets there majorly in the run game. Game script as well, you would think benefits Atlanta here as a pretty big road favorite heading into Carolina. As of this morning, the spread for this one, 24.3 for Atlanta, 19.8 for Carolina. So actually, I think the total moved down a little bit here, but still 4.5 point spread favoring Atlanta on the road. For them, you expect any sort of game script like that to include the RB heavily involved. So really no critique for Bijan, for McCaffrey. I mean, we kind of saw the downside last week. I said my theory for that yesterday as well, or on Friday as well, for McCaffrey, that I think we got a lot of work in week 1 because it was sort of a mid-game deviation that the team wasn't prepared for, losing Kittle in that game, having Juwan Jennings be ineffective and also banged up in week 1. If Jennings doesn't play, I think that does make things a little bit more appealing for McCaffrey because you just don't have that kind of every down target. Ricky Pearsall, even though people love him, he's not really like an every down chain moving kind of receiver. So I think that's where McCaffrey could be more involved. But these 2 guys are the best plays in the week. I'd personally favor Bijan a little bit, but I think no matter what, the ownership's going to be down a little bit for both guys compared to it would be otherwise. So wheels up if you want to play McCaffrey or Bijan in lieu of Jordan Mason or Kenneth Walker. And if you play them with those guys, again, you're probably pretty chalky. Justin Herbert at number 3, again, pretty aggressive projection here, as Green Checkmark pointed out. As we saw earlier in the week as well on Friday's video, ETR loving Justin Herbert. I am surprised to see the projection be this high against Denver. The team total is fairly high for the matchup. Right now, Chargers at 24 implied points. I believe they're at 24.5 on Friday. For Justin Herbert, I think he's played well. He's certainly, I'm not like a big dying on the hill of Justin Herbert guy. I think he's pretty talented, but I think even by my standards of not being somebody that's like, the people online who are like, he's one of the top 5 QBs, and the results aren't even close. But he's, film wise, he plays well. Data wise, he plays well. He's crushing it this year. Like, he's very efficient in particular. EPA wise, 0.47 EPA per pass. I have no critique with Justin Herbert. I just feel like to get a guy who's going to be forced in projection wise, that, the ETR sim product, at least on Friday, was pushing pretty heavy. And it's just a matchup I don't love. Like, Denver's defense, even in the games where they haven't, played up to snuff, in particular week 1, I still crushed on defense. Like, I'm not sold on Justin Herbert being a guy I want to play in adverse conditions, but Stochastic has him highly projected here. He is the one of 2 QBs in the top 5, and it feels like an aggressive projection for me. And frankly, Stochastic's projections this year so far, a little bit over aggressive sometimes. I mean, just to be candid about it. Saquon Barkley at number 4, 20.9 fantasy points for him. He will go, I think, pretty underplayed on the slate. Not up to the ownership portion of things yet, but as of this morning, Saquon projected for that 15% ownership is not insignificant. If I had to guess, it'd be closer to 10. He hasn't had the same kind of breakaway touchdown opportunity so far. These first 2 weeks, the numbers actually don't look bad for Saquon. He's missing tackles at a 22.5% clip, which is better than last year. 4 red zone opportunities a game as well. I think for Saquon, he seems to me to be a pretty live pivot at the RB position, but he's still a top 5 projected guy. I do think he ends up being less so than Bijan and Christian McCaffrey by a decent margin, and certainly less so than Jordan Mason and Kenneth Walker. So Saquon this week, I think it's odd that people have kind of jumped off the train so early when he was a guy people were dying to cram into lineups every single game last year. The Eagles overall haven't looked as good, but Saquon's role still getting 23 and a half intended touches a game right now. Not having Shipley in gives him a little bit more pass game work. He's averaging 3.5 targets per game. The role is just as good for Saquon. He just hasn't broken a long touchdown. And, I think last year's long touchdowns were a little bit fluky. And the yards per contact stuff is not quite as good this year as it was last year. But he'll get there, whether it's in the spot versus the Rams or not. I think Saquon's a decent play coming up here. People aren't playing him as much as they seem like they would. The Eagles just want to play rugby. Eagles are playing a weird brand of football right now. I think the drop-off of Kellen Moore, the OC coming in there, an internal promotion again, it seems like kind of the same thing when they had previously lost Shane Steichen, promoted internally. The guys who are promoting internally don't seem to be the most progressive offensive minds in the world. But, it's early as well. And rounding out, speaking of the Eagles offense, Jalen Hurts at number 5, 20.6 projection. Certainly if Saquon doesn't get there, Jalen Hurts has a higher probability of doing so. He's running 9 times a game. 2.5 of those runs are inside the red zone. The tush push going to be apparently reffed more aggressively because there does seem to often be line movement a little bit early on the tush push plays, but that doesn't really matter that much. Just means that Jalen Hurts will have to work slightly harder to probably get the same results. So Jalen Hurts in play for sure at 6,800. And if people play Justin Herbert more, I'm not dying to play Jalen Hurts at the highest price tag, but I do think he's a guy where he'll get you, I would say, 1 rushing touchdown today is pretty decent likelihood. If the pass game starts to click a little bit more, maybe they get pressed a bit more by the Rams offense, then maybe start to see that look a little bit better. But Hurts as a QB is not doing tremendously well so far. Only 29 dropbacks per game, one of the lowest marks in the league. Sorting my value here, you can build CMC, Bijan, and Bucky with a Herbert, QJ, and Allen stack. That is exactly the kind of build that I think a lot of people are going to think about. But we'll talk about it as we go here. We'll see what the optimizers give us. Again, you got to really keep in mind, your first thought, and this is really the important part of DFS. And again, this is me not trying to be shitty in any way, just really reflecting on what DFS is, especially in 2025. Your first thought, everybody else has already had. Your second thought, that's like, oh, this is pretty clever. People have had that too. Your third thought, people have probably had that to about 10 to 15% ownership as well when you're still using kind of a chalky baseline for stuff. So just keep that in mind here. What wins on a weekly basis? It's some plays that are sort of being touted everywhere that are highly projected across the industry. And then it's, much lower owned plays around it. I'm not saying that specifically for Jake stuff, but really think that's a theme that I'm seeing a lot in our chats lately, across the industry as well, is people think this stuff is unique now and sometimes it's just not. So just really be mindful, and especially if you have sim stuff, whether it's ETR sims or stochastic, sim your stuff out, run a single lineup sim, see if it's actually, a thing that the data is kind of supporting in some way, even if it's not 150% ROI or whatever. But use your tools. You use the tools. Use Stochastic, 15% off promo code SPLASH at Stochastic. Like, I really encourage you guys now more than ever. Send your stuff out. Make sure that it's not as chalky as it seems, because like the dupes on showdowns in particular are egregious lately. Like on Thursday's slate, there's like a 750 dupe train in the Millie Maker that was like an awful lineup that wasn't even close to winning. And that's happening on more and more slates lately. So just something that's a top of mind for me. So it's probably, I'm bringing it to you guys more than you need. Top values right now. And I would say another build that people are going to go to a lot this week, I'd say for sure in cash, this is a must have. Marcus Mariota at QB. He's a 4.4x value, according to Stochastic, 17.6 projection for him. Mariota, 4K flat salary. Mariota has been, based on the data going back to last year. And actually, I could pull up, I didn't do an advance here, but I could pull up some Mariota last year stats. Basically just plays like a shittier version of Jaden Daniels, if I'm recalling correctly. Mariota, 80. Actually, you know what? Small sample size last year, played 3 games, 17 dropbacks per game in those spots. 88.6% catchable ball rate there. So he was pretty accurate. Downfield, 3.7 deep shots a game, throws at 20 plus air yards. He ran less. He ran only 5 times per game and 0.7 in the red zone. So not quite as much of a rushing role. So that's the part that I'm really thinking of. Accuracy is there. Efficiency is there. 0.36 EPA per pass, 0.35 EPA per dropback. I think the big thing you're losing, though, is that rushing upside. You lose some of that touchdown equity that represents Jaden Daniels for sure. For me, for Mariota, the big thing is like, I think he'll get you 15 and 20 fantasy points this week. I just think in a large field tournament, you probably are going to need like whatever 25-point game. I mean, the good news, if you're playing Mariota, there isn't a Lamar on the slate. There isn't a Josh Allen on the slate. There isn't a Jay Daniels on the slate. There isn't that obvious, this guy can go for 30, 35 and like absolutely break my back at 4K. But Daniel Jones has been pretty good. Like Caleb Williams in a really high total game. Dak Prescott is not really running enough, I think, to have a crazy ceiling. But if the pass game gets there hugely versus Chicago's shitty defense, that could be an outlier day. That's what I worry about with Mariota, is that he'll give you that 18. But I don't know if that 18 wins you a Millie Maker. I don't know if that 18 wins you a play action. I don't even know if that 18 wins you a quarter jukebox. But I would say for Mariota, like, he's a very obvious play. That said, I think he's a little bit too obvious again, to go back to the theme of the video, I guess, and the theme in my brain this week. Mariota live to throw a touchdown to himself. I mean, at this rate, I think they'll take whatever they can get. Carson Wentz, 15. The Washington offense, too, I have to say, and I've said it previously on stream, it hasn't looked as good this year with Jaden Daniels, and I don't think it's Jaden's fault. I just feel like I think they're not playing aggressively enough. There was an issue they had last year, again, as somebody that watched every Commander snap because I was so deeply invested in them. I'm just not crazy about Washington's offense. That's probably impacting my Mariota stand a little. But again, he's cheap. He projects really well. So if you want to play him, just try to be unique about it. If you're playing Mariota with Mason, with Walker, with Trey McBride, you're doing the same shit as everybody else. Carson Wentz at number 2. Yeah, so Mariota and Carson Wentz, what year is it? Top value. The big thing is that these guys are both 4K. I mean, Wentz really was effectively not good last year. Hasn't been good for a few years. So we just read off some of Mariota's 2024 stats. Carson Wentz played less, only had 2 games, averaged 12 dropbacks in those 2 games, but a negative 0.3 EPA per pass, negative 0.29 EPA per dropback is not very good. Didn't take many deep shots when he played, only 1 deep throw per game, was not successful with it. 0.5 runs per game. He has no rushing upside. I would play Jake Browning over Wentz. I would play Mariota over Wentz. I would play any of the guys. I would play any of the other QBs available over Wentz. Not a Wentz believer, but he comes up here. He'll be less owned than Mariota. I think it's the biggest things you could say for him. It's been 2 games. It doesn't. I mean, I'm the one that says that. Like, again, we want a larger sample size. I still have eyes, though, and I still watch the Commanders more than any other team in football. Because I'm just, again, like, Jaden is one of my biggest stands of the year. Eckler was one of my biggest stands at RB. Debo's one of my biggest stands. Zach Ertz is one of my biggest stands. I have a lot invested in the Commanders yet again. So, like, I watch them, like, with a fine-tooth comb. They are not playing as well as they did towards the end of last year when it seemed like they were figuring it out. And that's the reality of it. If you don't want to listen to me, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. Like, I really don't functionally. I want to tell you guys what my plays are, what I'm seeing. Dante, I think you're just a fan here. But point being, I don't think your takes are good. So you can believe whatever you want. Please play whatever you want. I'm telling you what I see, and that's what this stream is. So please strap in if you enjoy that part. And if you don't, Go watch. Is Neil doing a stream? Go watch Neil's streams. We got Caleb Williams at number 3. 20.3 fantasy points for him. High projection here. The big thing for me with Caleb Williams is that he's played better than people realize, has been accurate, delivering the ball on time, also running a good amount, running in the red zone as well. For Caleb, I think he's one of the stronger plays of the week. The issue is how much does he come up? Everybody will be targeting the Chicago-Dallas game. Again, one of the spots that's not sneaky at all. Chicago-Dallas with the chalk RBs. That's going to be how a lot of slate goes. Put Trey McBride on top. You're going to have a pretty good feel for how these lineups are getting played this week. But I still think Caleb is a strong play. Can you get unique there? Playing just DJ Moore with Odunze might be enough to do that. But certainly Caleb plus Odunze with CeeDee Lamb. That's going to come up a good amount this week for a lot of people. Drake Maye at number 4. Surprised to see him be a top value as well, but 18.7 fantasy points makes him come up a little bit here. Drake Maye, the big thing that I think people may miss is that, last week, kind of a soft matchup, going really, for Drake Maye, I'm not super impressed overall. I think the underlying numbers are okay. I think he's still a player that's hard to stack up, and that's really the biggest thing for why I don't want to play Drake Maye. One of my best teams last week in Underdogs Battle Royale finished top 700, I believe. Had Jonathan Taylor, had Drake Maye, had stacked up Hunter Henry. He did absolutely nothing. Keyshawn Butte is the most obvious guy to stack up Drake Maye, but the big thing we know from a lot of data is just sort of saying that at this point for how New England goes, how stacking goes, you want to stack up more, you want to game stack more. You can't really double stack New England. If you did, I think you would lose money right away. Single stacking with Keyshawn Butte, people will do that, but you're probably due some regression to other guys in that offense, like in Hunter Henry, like a Stephon Diggs, who's not playing a ton of snaps, but is still out enough, getting targeted enough that he should spike. I don't like the stacks for New England. I'm also not a huge Drake Maye guy. I do think Pittsburgh at some point is not going to play like absolute dog shit. So hopefully that's today, but Drake Maye to me, not really a factor I care too much about. Okay, we get it, Dante. We got it. Again, the point is that you're telling me it's 2 weeks. You're saying things that are also just based on your opinion. That's sort of the whole point of football. So to harp on me when I can't tell you that I pay more attention to the Commanders than anything. I'm coming about it earnestly. And like my pal Robert Griffith III said, again, not to always highlight his brilliant chats, Commanders aren't going to suddenly unlock everything with Mariota at QB. I agree with that. I pointed out Mariota is very accurate. So if you want to make that buy-in, you can. I'm not doing it. This video is about what the plays are the industry is giving you and what I'm going to do. I am not going to go crazy on Marcus Mariota and the Commanders offense. And I have not been impressed with the Commanders offense. I think it's objectively looked much worse for almost every player in that offense, besides maybe Zach Ertz. And, Debo coming in also upsets the apple tree as well. But that's enough about the fucking Commanders. We got, any chance JCM's a good play? I think JCM actually makes sense for game theory to get leverage on people thinking like Dante is, though, respect Dante. But again, just when you see Mariota come up this easily, this obviously, I think that at that point, going to JCM would make sense, because if JCM has a decent day, great. The issue with JCM is he's not going to play passing downs really. The offense should be a little bit less aggressive overall. I'm not a big JCM guy. That's been my stand basically the entire offseason. He's had the best run out possible, but even in last game with Eckler going out, you see McNichols taking over. Doesn't mean it's going to be the case forever, but I would have a hard time going out of my way for JCM, and this week in particular. One thing I will say for JCM is he is kind of a price point pivot to Jordan Mason, to Kenneth Walker. So buying the guy post hype a little bit after he had his worst box score game ever against Green Bay, that could be the time to do that. So if you want to play a JCM, I think it makes sense. It's not a play I'm dying to get to, though, is I guess the best way for me to say that. And Kenneth Walker rounds at our top 5 in value here. Now that fucking made me talk too many Commanders. I could talk Commanders all day. I should be hired in the DMV to talk Commanders. I'm telling you guys, too much Commanders. Now Mariota's going to go for 400 yards and JCM will run for 100. And that's going to be the game sack you need. Kenneth Walker at number 5. He's a top 5 value. This is part of why Stochastics can project Walker to have more ownership. Really, the big thing for Walker is that he's been great for multiple years, but he has been kind of impeded, in particular this year, by having Charbonnet take a workload away. Walker only getting 13.5 intended touches per game so far this year. He has a 35% avoided tackle rate in the run game, 25% in the pass game. Usually it's a little bit higher in the pass game, but he's been around a 30% or so avoided tackle rate guy for years. Had basically, in my opinion, the most juice in the league at RB since he's basically come in. So for Kenneth Walker to get the role back fully, it is also theoretically a Clint Kubiak revenge game, if that matters to you. He did leave New Orleans, came to Seattle, might really want to show off his run game in his new home with a back with a lot of explosiveness. I like Kenneth Walker. I like him relative to matchup more than Jordan Mason. I think you have a better shot of like Kenneth Walker going for 100 yards because of just having that workload as opposed to Jordan Mason, where Jordan Mason me feels like 20 touches for 70 yards in some situations. I don't think if Kenneth Walker gets you 20 touches, he's going to give you 70 yards. I think he's probably going to break one along the way there. So for me, I think Kenneth Walker, stronger play than Jordan Mason, but he is going to be the highest owned guy for that reason. Anything else to note up top here in terms of top values? Kenneth Walker and Jordan Mason, the only non-QBs up top as value plays. Same thing we've had on recent slates, though at least this week we have 2 RBs coming up as top values. Nobody at receiver coming up as a top value. DSTs, Steelers, Jets, Tony Pollard coming in a little bit here, but it's basically the same thing here. QBs underpriced relative to projection. RBs, this week we have a few because guys were in situations that weren't expected, but really not crazy values. There's no 3K guys. There's nobody that's standing out on that kind of level. Ownership up next. Saints play fast, lots of play volume in that game. The Saints playing 68 plays per game. Seattle playing slow, though, so usually that'll meet somewhere in the middle, but should mean an uptick in pace for sure for Seattle, so good point by Lee. All right, ownership right now. Kenneth Walker expected for 36% ownership. So like we talked about here, he's got all the juice in the world. It's a spot where they are a home favorite, 7-point home favorite as well for Seattle. That does scream running back. I will play some lineups today. Like I'll just straight up tell you guys my strategy for the day. I put in for some different 20 maxes because I want to try different lineup sets with the solver this week and just do some fades in some, lock some players in some. I just want to do some testing for myself to see if there's something in my process I could change because I feel like I've been kind of landlocked lately, haven't had enough time to handle as much as I want. I still like using the portfolio tool in the solver. So this week, what I'm going to do is like play some lineups with Walker locked, with Mason locked, some lineups with those guys out of the player pool entirely and see what I get. It's what I'm trying to tinker with this week. But I think really the entire slate comes down to, did Walker and Mason get there? Did somebody build something unique enough around that to get them there? Because like if you play these guys, I think you're talking about, week 1 Jets, like Steelers kind of stack where you have to play something that nobody's playing around that if you want to get to an actual unique path. Whatever that game would be that you would game stack around it, I don't know. It could also be like leaning in perhaps on the game stack in one of these guys' games where you take Jordan Mason, you take Jake Browning and the Bengals pass game core. Maybe that's one way that works out uniquely. But really these two guys are like the most important part. If you take them out of your lineup, you're going to be away from so many teams, but they're also, as we saw in the value sorting, they're also probably, 2 of the top RB values we'll get all year. There's going to be injuries at some point, I'm sure. Don't hold this against me in week 17 when we have some rookies starting for 4K. But for right now, like these guys are going to be the best values we've had, and really they stand out. So people are going to really be dying to cram them in. It's really important to keep that in mind if you build any Walker Mason lineups today. Really be unique around that because those guys are going to be in every possible well-projected configuration and also every possible hand builder, shitter, phone bro is going to build the same lineups with those guys in as well. Walker rarely has had to have it score. I don't know. That's not words. But he has had good red zone work. That's what we're talking about going back to last year. This year, a little bit less because of Charbonnet. Again, I would favor Walker over Mason, but ownership also favors Walker over Mason. Christian McCaffrey at number 3, expect for 29% ownership. Talked enough about McCaffrey. Workload is great in week 1, I think, because they had to kind of figure it out last minute. In week 2, they did ramp him down pretty meaningfully. That spooks me a little bit about McCaffrey, given the fact that last year his workload was not fantastic. And that was a competitive game last week. Granted, it was kind of an ugly one versus New Orleans for the Niners, but it was still a competitive game. McCaffrey, I'm comfortable moving away from him this week. Totally. I mean, not totally, but definitely more than the field's 29%. That said, if you're getting McCaffrey in, you're playing him with Walker and Mason, same thing again. Be really mindful of uniqueness around that. It's going to be a common build. JSN, late adds the injury report with an illness. I would assume he plays through it, but the fact that it's a late ad is not great. That said, for JSN, $6,500 salary for him. He's been targeted incredibly well, as right now owns about a 45% target per out run rate. That shouldn't hold over the course of a year, but he has been relatively a pretty good PPR scam. Cooper Kupp, though, got his targets up last week pretty meaningfully, got himself to a respectable rate. I think JSN's still going to keep flattening out week to week, but he's still well projected, still a nice salary. I'm comfortable playing other guys, a receiver personally, but I think he's a cash game play for sure if you're using stochastic data. Charbonnet got more work last week than Walker. Why? Because they alternate drives, or they were alternating drives. So sometimes, and this has been the case for 2 weeks, Walker would get some 3 and out. Charbonnet would get a longer drive. It wasn't really how Charbonnet was playing because he was actually pretty awful. Walker also broke a few explosive plays last week, so that kind of cut the play volume on a drive, but that'd be the logic. And solid home favorite with all the work. You just blindly play these underpriced RB spots. We talking about for Mason, or are you talking about for both? I normally, I guess, but I don't think you blindly play anything at this point in DFS personally. You got to open your, what is the Davis Max say, your third eye, your fourth eye, your brown eye. You got to open any eyes you have at this point, because everybody plays the good shit. Like, you got to, and yeah, we still want to play the best players if we can. But I don't know. Like, last year felt that way pretty pronouncedly to me. This year I'm feeling it even more through 2 weeks. That's my take on things. Is like, if you just cram in Walker and Mason in every lineup, yeah, if you play 100%, you've got your stand. The issue is, like, the ownership is so efficient now, and like, that's the issue. Number 5, you got Bijan Robinson here. Same thing as Christian McCaffrey. And I feel at price wise, I feel a little bit stronger about Bijan. Just think that he finds ways to get there. I also think Carolina could press a little bit in this game. Was really happy to see Bryce Young look less like dog shit in the back half of last game. He had 2 turnovers that were really backbreaking versus Arizona last week, then kind of kept himself clawed back in, really fed Ted McMillan first 100-yard day for McMillan. Obviously 2 touchdowns for Hunter Renfrow. I'd expect to be the case every week. But I think for Bijan, I think you get a decent game environment here. Think you potentially, I mean, a little bit of personal bias here because I do want to see Carolina be good. And I do think Bryce Young has the ability to be a guy that keeps Carolina hanging around enough for guys like Bijan Robinson to get there. But I like Bijan here. And again, the fact that he can get 100 yards in different situations has stood out to me in the beginning part of the year. Besides these guys, Puka Nacua at 20%, Trey McBride at 20. People are going to have it really easy this week to pay up a tight end. If you have the balls to go to Brock Bowers, you'll get leverage there. Also, certainly paying down a tight end, another way to handle things if you want to get away from some McBride chalk. But it could be a week kind of like the Battle Royale last week. Trey McBride ended up making the winning lineup, putting up like 10 half PPR points. He'll probably give you like 10 to 15 PPR points. And that might be enough. Like, if you just have the nuts around that, I think McBride doesn't kill you. But if you get an outlier tight end, then maybe it allows you to pay up somewhere else a little bit cheaper, like your Juwan Johnson types. Those guys are still going to be in play for me, but kind of hard to argue McBride. Jonathan Taylor after this big game last week, he's projected for 19% ownership. Kind of feels a little bit high. CeeDee Lamb, the potential chalk fest, Dallas, Chicago, 18%. Same thing for Rome Odunze. So very obvious stack coming up here that'll probably get paired a lot with those Walker, Jordan, Mason lineups. Jake Ferguson rising tied to that Chicago game as well. 10% ownership expected for him. Bucky Irving, who I like in that Jets matchup. Somebody in the chat mentioned him as well. 11% ownership for him. Kind of surprised to see that be that high. But he looked good to me in the end of last game as well. Another guy that I feel like I was waiting to see some glimpse of what we got last year. And Bucky breaking some long plays, getting some room to operate. Bucks offense overall, I felt like kind of cleaned things up towards the tail end of last week. So I'll be a buyer on the Bucks offense this week, but certainly I've been one these weeks so far. Anybody else to highlight here? DJ Moore, lesser owned part of that Dallas-Chicago game. Pickens at 5%. He's had about 3x the red zone targets of CeeDee Lamb so far. Pickens, certainly a guy I think who's due for some positive regression and should get there or have a shot to get there against a shitty secondary. Trying to see if there's anything else here to highlight. People like Quentin Johnston. He's a lesser owned part of that Justin Herbert stack. Denver also does play a good amount of man defense. So Quentin Johnston has been a man defense touchdown machine going back to last year. Kyron Williams here after the bad game last week is chalk. 3% ownership for him. Blake Corum, though, kind of coming from the work or for the work a little bit more than you'd want to see. Mike Egbuka down to 2% ownership, banged up all week. Maybe a farewell to arms game for Egbuka, though, with Chris Godwin on pace to be back in week 4, it looks like. Jordan Love, 2% ownership here. If Cleveland somehow hangs in, he's been slinging it. Krosky Merritt, 2% if you want to play the Mariota fade and hope that Krosky Merritt actually gets bell cow work. There's some interesting plays this week down the food chain. So certainly possible. If you are like a Jordan Mason, Kenneth Walker, I'm going to play him in every lineup guy. You could probably find your way to get some low-owned options with that if you just mix in some of these guys, 10% or less ownership. Let's go to ETR next. Build a cash game lineup. Let me take off all this stuff here. Let's build an optimal You guys, show some love if you can. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It all goes a long way for me here. Just one guy showing you my gambling. Again, it's the whole thing that I talk about here. I'm not necessarily telling you who to play. I'm just telling you what I'm going to play and how I view a slate based on everything that I'm seeing in a given week. So again, show some love, subscribe button, hit the like button, and join the channel as well. If you do, you get access to our Discord. It's only $5 a month to join. And of course, you get my data sheet every week, a premium video every week where I go game by game. And you can see the data that I talk about on an actual sheet on office.com if you want to. So I do the best I can and give you guys, again, a read into what I'm doing in a given week. You might not want to play it the same way as I do. If you watch every video looking for what's a fade, you think you'll get value, though. So join the channel, join the Discord. If you're a guy like Dante who wants to argue with me, great, do it in the Discord. I love people who know what they're talking about and want to argue with me, great. It's when people don't know and I want to fucking bless them. Real fast in chats. Taylor and Walker or Mason and Barkley? I feel like that's personal preference. I'd personally go Taylor and Walker, though. Guess Mason snap percentage. 90%. They do like Akers. I mean, they trusted Akers a good amount last year, but I think it's got to be 80 to 90. I mean, they got rid of Akers last year too. Granted, it's because somebody wanted him. That's how I feel about that. Richard here, Dak double stack with Ferguson and Pickens and a more bring back. That's creative. That's creative. All right, your cash game lineup right now. That was a compliment, Dante. That was a compliment. I'd rather argue with you when you're paying me money in a Discord. Because it just distracts me on stream because then I want to be like, well, here's how I feel about it. Like, and I like these debates, but I gotta stay on time here so I can do all the shit I gotta do. I also do live before lock again today, 11:30 Eastern. If you want to check me out on Stochastic, but I gotta build all my lineups between these two streams, so I gotta make sure to get out of here 10 a.m. Eastern on the dot. Marcus Mariota, Jonathan Taylor in our cash game lineup according to ETR data. Jordan Mason. So Taylor, Mason, Kenneth Walker, your 3 RBs according to ETR you want in a cash game lineup. Puka Nacua, JSN, Keenan Allen, which ETR likes a lot more than Stochastic does. ETR will feature Keenan Allen a lot, as we'll see in a moment. But basically, Keenan Allen in these ETR lineups a lot more than you would think at a $4,700 salary. A Trey McBride, elite tight end here. Commanders D as well, going against Vegas. Vegas certainly looked bad last week. I really was disappointed by that one too, because of ETR State actually played a lot of Geno stacks on that Monday night doubleheader. Not sold Commanders D gets to Geno, so I don't love the Mariota Commanders D correlation, but for a cash game, kind of is what it is. Overall, Marcus Mariota makes it in all the top 25 lineups. And again, the goal of this is to see, like, projection-wise, what people are going to get fed the most. In fact, you're seeing Mariota in every one of these top 25 lineups and no variance on top, no stacking rules given, means that Mariota's probably going to get into a lot of plays this week by people that just don't go to the sim level, don't go beyond projections. That's a big thing for Mariota. Like, don't play naked Mariota, I think, unless, now like some fucking genius DFS player is going to win with naked Mariota. But I don't think you play naked Mariota. Think you want to stack it up. Think for cash, Mariota's your first guy in easily. Like, please play Mariota in cash. For a tournament, though, if you want to be with the field, play 10% Mariota, but single stack him. I would say double stack him. He's been accurate, like we saw looking up the numbers here. So Mariota plus Ertz plus Devo. Probably don't want to do McLaurin as much, but you could do that way as well. That's how I would play it if you're going to play Mariota. Thoughts on JSN? JSN going to be well projected everywhere. I think the illness maybe keeps the ownership in check a little bit. They're a late game today, right? Yeah, they're a 4:05 game. I mean, look, you run some risk with the illness that he could get ruled out, but you'll have pivots. Dallas, Chicago's at 4:25. Denver Chargers is also at 4:05. So yeah, like if you want to play JSN, you think he's a great play. Just be prepared to swap at that 4:05 window. But I'm not crazy about him. I think he's, to me, a little bit overprojected because he's gotten targeted so much per route so far this year. Overall in the top 25, though, Mariota in every lineup, Trey McBride in almost every lineup, Jordan Mason in almost every lineup. Kenneth Walker coming in a little bit less. ETR has Kenneth Walker at 19.1 projection, Jordan Mason at 18.2. So not quite as big of a lean for Kenneth Walker as Stochastic had. But Keenan Allen making it into 88% of these lineups, Kenneth Walker in 88%. Really the ETR core this week based off projections is Mariota, Trey McBride, Jordan Mason, Keenan Allen, and Kenneth Walker. Let's put on our stack rules here. We're going to try to get more game stacks and things like that. So let's boost this. Let's boost I got to save these. Let me boost RBs from the same team to 15%. And opponents to 20%. So this way we get more natural game stacks here. I guess not natural, but get more forced game stacking here. Because the top 1% of lineups every given week last year played more game stacks, played more team stacks, played more onslaughts than the field played. So there's something to keep in mind here that I'm trying to be mindful of when I build lineups this week. Suggestions for a low-owned game stack, and that's personal choice. Rattler, maybe. Team total's not great. I think that's kind of a compelling one. Tyrod Taylor, I'm a little bit intrigued guy. People who watched Friday's video, Garrett Wilson. So it's funny, I posted in the Discord, but Garrett Wilson, after the stream I did, like basically like an hour after the stream, I do wonder if somebody at Stochastic watched my stream. I was like, oh, oops. Garrett Wilson went from a 19.2 projection to a 15.2 projection. So he is now back to being a sneaky play if you want to go that way. But Tyrod, kind of like the Mariota thing, Tyrod, pretty accurate as a backup, is a guy that I think can find the way to get the ball where it needs to go. Jets total, though, also not great. But I think if you're going to talk to me about two guys that are like low-owned this week, Tyrod Taylor, and the totals also suck. Tyrod Taylor and Spencer Rattler are two guys where it's like, all right, the Vegas total makes me think I'm going to lose money on this. That said, I think there's a way where these guys can get there, especially for Tyrod as a pivot to the, really for Rattler too, but pivot to the ownership that's going to go Mariota and Wentz's way. I like that shot, but that's me. Do I like Colts D versus Tennessee? Yes, but the projections do as well. Colts D was coming up an ungodly amount in Stochastic Sim. I think like a third of lineups had the Colts D on Friday. So we'll see what we get here. But yeah, Colts D I think is not, not a play that will be under-owned as a defense. Really, people want to keep playing against Cam Ward every week. I get it. I also don't think Cam Ward is like a dumpster fire where he's going to turn the ball over a bunch necessarily. So basically the elevator pitch would be like, I think Colts D won't kill you, but I do think they're going to be more than appropriately owned relative to the matchup and all that. Darnold stack too cute, in my opinion. His drop back rate has not been good. But given the Walker ownership, I think playing the QB, that's not a bad idea. All right, let's go. Let's do the mini max because this will give us, it gives us more entries, right? Yes, Slant has 13,000 entries in it. We want to get basically the most entries possible in a 150 max as opposed to like a single entry. ETR doesn't give you the play action, the milli maker, stuff like that, which is one of the biggest pain points for me. You can also use the portfolio tool here, which I won't use because it's going to slow us down. But if you're building lineups with the solver, use this portfolio tool. If you're building a 20 max, building a 150 max, just build a portfolio with different versions of this. You could put in 15 different portfolios of 150 entries. Again, that's what I'm doing today for lineups I'm putting into the various 20 maxes. So use it. It's a really cool tool to have here. Similar, from what I've seen, to Run the Sims portfolio tool that they have with Shady Advice on there. Maybe a little bit less fully developed because I think Shady Advice actually uses that. It is portfolio. This one is probably just made by coders. Oh, Jaden Daniels still out. I hate to see it. Hate to see it. A human or punt looks good. Yeah, it's been touted a little bit this week. He's getting very similar work to Calvin Ridley. I kind of think that moves around at some point. We'll see. But right now, your top ROI entries, according to ETR, Carson, oh boy. Carson Wentz at number one. A Wentz, Jordan Mason, Justin Jefferson stack here. The team overall has Wentz, Bijan Robinson, Jordan Mason, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Keenan Allen, Trey McBride, Kenneth Walker, Steelers D. So again, you're cramming in your chalky RBs, Mason, Walker, Bijan to a lesser extent. You're getting the chalk tight end here. ETR also thinks Keenan Allen's going to be pretty decently owned. He is in here. You're getting unique by making a Wentz Jefferson stack, paying up there. Playing Steelers D, which does seem like a defense that hasn't come up a lot across the industry, and projection-wise is not, like being crammed in a bunch. Devontae Adams in here as well. Another player here, another stack. I don't think people have talked about very much. So I get this lineup here. Not excited about the Wentz part of things, but Sim, again, giving you Wentz over Mariota up top. So that's why you run a Sim. Number two, ETR still loving Justin Herbert here. A Herbert triple. Justin Herbert, Jonathan Taylor, Tony Pollard. So you're getting different at RB because you are going with what ETR thinks will be a somewhat chalky stack. Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, Trey McBride, the value or the elite tight end chalk coming into play again. Jalen Warren is at a very good red zone role. He is in this lineup, and Jaguars D rounds it out. And number three, Tyler Warren makes this one instead of McBride. So McBride literally not coming up everywhere, but he is definitely going to be popular for stochastic users and for ETR, it looks like. This Herbert lineup has Herbert, so it's only a double stack. Herbert, Jalen Warren, Kenneth Walker, Puka Nacua, JSN, Lad McConkey, Tyler Warren, and Keenan Allen. So last two lineups, you are fading at least one of Walker and Mason. I mean, the last lineup faded both. At number 4, you have Kyler Murray. Jordan Mason gets back in here. Kenneth Walker chalk. McCaffrey chalk in the flex. You're going less owned here with DK Metcalf, Jacoby Myers, Keenan Allen. Still Trey McBride in this one. Jaguars D in this one as well. So really underlying themes here. Trey McBride making a lot of these lineups. And if you're playing RB chalk, you're just kind of rolling the dice at receiver and defense and QB. Receiver for 2 spots. ETR giving you Keenan Allen a lot. Number 5 lineup is Mac Jones, Jordan Mason, Kenneth Walker, Devontae Adams, Rome Odunze, Ricky Pearsall, Trey McBride, Christian McCaffrey, and Steelers D makes it in again. So seems like Steelers D coming up a little bit more than I would have expected from ETR, given the fact also they're a site that generally projects Drake Maye pretty well. But okay, so that's your top 5 lineups right now. Overall, highest ROI guys across the entire portfolio. Cardinals D, which barely comes up. Geno, which barely comes up. Quentin Johnston, Calvin Austin, Justin Herbert. In terms of chalky guys, Keenan Allen. ETR really loves Keenan Allen. 31% of these lineups have Keenan Allen, and he still has a 37% ROI. So Keenan Allen, it feels like just really the big difference this week that ETR favors that Stochastic doesn't is Keenan Allen. Player stacks. Getting Walker and JSN coming up together a decent amount. 25% of the lineups have at least 2 Seahawks. Same thing for Cowboys. Pretty close for Bears as well. 24% of the lineups have at least 2 Bears. And just for the sake of completionism here, here's what ETR thinks is a good Mariota lineup. Still unstacked. All right, Mariota, Saquon, Kenneth Walker, Devontae Adams, JSN. So a Seattle double with Mariota at QB. Ricky Pearsall, Trey McBride, Javonte Williams, Bengals D. This is just a parlay, basically. Yeah, I mean, not really any instant correlation in any way. I'm surprised ETR is giving me a lineup like that sims that well, but there you go. So I could be wrong. Maybe Naked Mariota still has a path, but that's, yeah, no correlation in that lineup. I'm surprised to see it. Let's go to Stochastic next, see what they have up top. Guys, again, show some love if you're watching live. Whether you're on Twitter or on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button. If you're on YouTube, subscribe down below. If you're on Twitter, hit the follow button. All my content here, Monday for the Showdown slate, Thursday for the Showdown slate, Friday, not a first look, but a thorough look for the main slate, Sundays at 9 a.m. here. Those are the videos I put out every week. Also on Stochastic 3 times a week. So please show some love. Support the channel if you can. And make sure to check out promo code SPLASH on Stochastic. You want to use the sims I'm using here. Even just get the single lineup sims so you have some sort of check on what you're building. So I'd recommend for really anybody out there. But get that. The data, really, the big thing for me is that number 1, if you pay Stochastic, half the money comes back to me. It's a big way I'm able to keep doing this channel as frequently as I do. Number 2 is that the data stuff, the cheap packages, the expensive packages, it's all 15% off the promo code SPLASH. So please do click that link down below and check out Stochastic. If you want the solver as well, promo code SPLASH works on there. You just don't get as big of a discount because the solver knows. Actually, the solver I just don't think gives a shit. I don't think you're paying as much pricing attention as Stochastic does, but it's a great tool. Really, I like using both as part of my process. Solver gives you more control. Stochastic kind of spoon feeds you what their data thinks, and clearly both have their merits. A lot of wins for Stochastic users this year, which always makes me feel like I'm not doing something right, but you know, what are you going to do? I appreciate all you guys being here, hanging out on this fine Sunday morning. Hopefully you don't have a wife going across the country for a few days and have to deal with your kid today. I'm going to have a hard time paying my usual OCD level of attention every game, but I'll do the best I can. Cardinals or Seahawks D? Neither. But based on projections, I guess Seahawks D. Seahawks D with Walker maybe gets you a little bit less ownership product on your Walker. But neither seems like a great play to me. All right, top lineups according to Stochastic right now. We got Mac Jones at number 1. Different look than we got here from ETR. The ETR had a top 5 lineup with Mac Jones as well. Mac Jones, Jordan Mason, Kenneth Walker, Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall. Juwan Jennings makes this one. I haven't heard, unless I missed it this morning, if he's going to play. I think he's like a true Q tag with the shoulder and ankle injuries he has now. Jennings is a gamer, but it does really matter a good amount if he's going to play or not. So Jennings, just keep that in mind. But Jennings, Trey McBride makes this one as well. So the McBride thing carries over to Stochastic. Christian McCaffrey, Steelers D. So, all right, Niners triple with a bring back here. That's the kind of correlation I expect to see in a top ROI lineup. Number 2, Dak Prescott, Jordan Mason, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, JSN, Tet McMillan, Jake Ferguson, Kenneth Walker, Steelers D. So double stack for Dallas here, no bring back. And I do think if you're going to play Dallas, Chicago, try to game stack it and try to capture the game environment fully. Shout out Bubble Hulk. Nice chat here. Amazing show. I appreciate that. And Bummer having to 10s here on Prodigy. I love hanging out with Luca, but like football days are the one day I'm supposed to be able to like strap in and pay attention. I don't take notes, but I usually have every game up on my laptop and I put the 4 games up on my TV. So like I really try hard. Like trust me when I tell you guys, like I don't come by this level of detail like fakely. I really earn it. But yeah, with Luca, I don't know, man. We're gonna have to get a second TV going. He's also going to be alone out there while I do the live before lock watching Cars 2 because Alex has like the transition time isn't great. So it's going to be a stressful day for old Spags, but we'll do the best we can. CJ Stroud, Jordan Mason at number 3, Kenneth Walker again. So Mason and Walker, Stochastic Sims, not afraid of these guys up top here. Nico Collins, Jacoby Myers, Dontavian Wicks, Trey McBride, Christian McCaffrey, Steelers D. So a Houston single here, Nico Collins. I guess the hope would be that Christian Kirk coming back in opens things up a little bit more for Nico. I was kind of conceptually intrigued by the Nico plus Kirk double and just trying to capture that this offense looks a lot better with him coming in, and maybe that's the part they're missing. Jacksonville's secondary has been really lucky to start the year. They're looking good right now based on EPA metrics. It's because they've had an incredibly high interception rate, a 6% interception rate, which doesn't really jibe with the fact they've only deflected 11% of passes. Jacksonville's very much due for regression in the secondary, so if you want to make a case for CJ Stroud, I think that's the case for it. Let's see. The Sims are all over the place at QB. The reason it's all over the place is because it's trying to cram in Mason and Walker. And the way you get that without losing all uniqueness, losing all shot at first place equity is by putting unique stacks around it. So I think that'd be the logic for it. Carson does have a wild plot. It's a spy plot. And Mater gets laid, I think is the implication there. And I got this. I got it. I'll be fine. It's just more, enjoyment. The process. Number 4, we have Carson Wentz, Bijan, and Kitty's also again been such an asshole lately. She's been good right now. My God, the dog and the child. It's gonna be a tough 3 days. Carson Wentz, Bijan Robinson, Jordan Mason, Justin Jefferson, JSN, Keenan Allen, 4 days, technically. Trey McBride, Kenneth Walker, Titans D. So once again, Mason and Walker make it in, but you're getting less zoned by putting a Wentz double stack in, including the RB. I will note though, Wentz, Mason, Jefferson, ETR had that in their top 5 ROI lineups. Now Stochastic does too. So maybe people's aversion to Carson Wentz and the fact that Kevin O'Connell has had these reclamation projects before. Unfortunately, Wentz stacks looking pretty good. Mater gets a girlfriend technically. He has a sexy spy, a British spy lady. And then their cover is that I think they're dating, but then turns out at the end that she actually wants to date him. So the implication is that Mater's at least going to get laid. He might have gotten a car handy at some got the rust taken off of his hub. The rust sucked off, hopefully. We got Drake Maye back on track. Now we talk about Mater getting his rust sucked off. Drake Maye, Tony Pollard, Kenneth Walker, Puka Nacua, JSN, Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Jets D. So here you are getting a little bit less unique. You're not playing Jordan Mason at RB. I guess a little bit more unique by not playing Mason RB. I said that backwards. That said, you're still getting a double stack with New England here with Henry and Diggs. I'm not super stoked about a New England double, but Drake Maye, ETR likes him a little bit. He comes up here as well. And again, like Dante pointed out in the chat, you are getting different QBs in all the top 5 lineups here. Mac Jones, Dak Prescott, Stroud, Wentz, Drake Maye. Player ROI, am I ruining your childhood? I think you'd want Mater to be getting laid. I think you want him to be the best he can be. Mater got They're kind of lube job. I mean, they do like piss jokes in the movie too about leaking oil and stuff. So there's precedent for cars' bodily fluids. Your top ROI players, according to Stochastic, Steelers D, ETR like in Steelers D as well. So if you're trying to get not so much off the beaten path, but the Sims are recommending it, and it does seem like projection-wise they come up a little bit less. Steelers D, a part of that. Jets D coming up here. Jets D has looked really bad to start the year. Kind of thought they would be resurgent under Aaron Glenn. They are not so far. But a 6% ROI for Jets D here at number 2. Tailpipe play. You guys are getting we should talk more Mater sex stuff on stream, and I think we'll bring out the best of you guys. Kenneth Walker, 5% ROI, and me too. Kenneth Walker, 5% ROI here, despite being in a shitload of lineups. So again, Stochastic Sim saying Walker, good chalk, Mason, good chalk here, with them having positive ROIs, despite being in a ton of these top 150 lineups. I will give the caveat, though. I'll never forget last year. Stochastic Sims are like, play Jamal Williams as the Saints lone RB. He's going to kill it. Put him in every lineup if you can. So sometimes it does happen. They do feed you the chalk RBs back, a little bit of a feedback loop. But look, if you put half your lineups with Mason and Walker today, I wouldn't be mad at you. But just keep in mind that, you got to get creative around it, like Stochastic tried to in their top ROI lineups. And number 5, our last positive ROI guy, alongside the Steelers D, Jets D, Kenneth Walker, and Jordan Mason, is Jake Ferguson. Ferguson's getting targeted a good amount. Feels to me still like Pickens is more due for an outlier day because the usage hasn't been great. But Ferguson's getting 9 targets a game, nothing in the red zone so far, half a deep target per game, so he's at least gotten 1 on the year. Based on target share, CeeDee Lamb's getting 12 a game, Ferguson's getting 9. Those guys should be your alphas. It just seems to me that Pickens is too low at a 15% target per out run. So I'm not crazy about Ferguson. I would try to go to Pickens more, but there you go. In terms of QB plus 1 stacks, nothing comes up as a positive ROI, but the closest is Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, and Marcus Mariota. QB plus 2 stacks, Dak Prescott is a positive 3.8% ROI. Carson Wentz, 3.3. Nobody else in the positives. And QB plus 3 stacks, your triple stacks of the QB. Sam Darnold, 22% ROI. Dak Prescott, 21. Rodgers, 13. Carson Wentz, 13. Rattler, 9. Daniel Jones, 8. So really seems like the Sims want you to try to build some QBs plus 3. Just trying to get unique. Larry the Cable Guy's not a redneck? I didn't know that. That actually does surprise me. That's such a grift then. Because he was doing weren't they doing the Redneck Kings of Comedy or whatever that shit was called? That's fucked up. You can't steal redneck culture. I'll defend them. If you have any QB stack requests, guys, you want to see, drop in the chat now because I'm going to run through the exposures here. If you have any stacks you want to see, I'll look through them real fast to close out the video. Top exposed guys, Kenneth Walker. Stochastic wants to get 85% of him. For what it's worth, this is also with 35% to first. So pretty aggressive first place layout. Stochastic, though, thinks the vast majority of your lineup should have Kenneth Walker and Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason, 72% of these top lineups have him. So you're getting basically almost 3x the field on Mason, almost 3x the field on Kenneth Walker as well. Really big stands in favor of just playing Walker and Mason. And again, I'm going to test that. I'm going to play a 20 max with just Walker and Mason, and I'm going to play a 20 max where I fade them both. That's what I'm going to try to do this week for myself for some portion of my lineups. Number 3, JSN, 42%, fields at 21. So Stochastic saying absorb the injury risk. They have a late swap tool as well if you want to swap off JSN, but illness makes them a bit of a risk. 405 game, and you'll have the pivot points of Dallas, Chicago at 425. So I would have no issue just going with JSN if you think he's a good play, or if you're just taking Stochastic sim lineups. Number 4, Bijan Robinson, and 34% of lineups, fields at 22. And Steelers D coming up about 4x the field. 32% Steelers D, fields at 8%. Drake Maye, in my opinion, is a mistake waiting to happen. So I actually like the forcing here of Steelers D. But, if you like Drake Maye, maybe you bump down to Steelers D a little bit. Highest leverage plays, Kenneth Walker getting 49% more than the field. That's a huge stand. Jordan Mason, 43% more than the field. That's a huge stand. Steelers D, 24% more in the field. That is a huge stand. JSN, 21% more in the field. Stop me if you heard this. That's a pretty huge stand. And number 5, Bijan Robinson, 12% more in the field. Not quite as huge, but it is a commitment to Bijan and being in about a third of these top 25 lineups. So, chalk for Stochastic here. The biggest fades for Stochastic this week, Saquon Barkley, 10% less than the field. Only 7% of their top 150 lineups have him, as opposed to the field 16% ownership. Josh Jacobs, He's one of the guys I'm intrigued by because Cleveland getting their ass kicked. Flacco drops back a lot. Packers D looks scary so far. Then you pair that with Jacobs. I think it's kind of a fun way to play some portion of lineups, but Stochastic is fading him. Only 5% of their top 150 lineups have him. Devontae Adams, he was coming up with some of ETR's top lineups, but Stochastic is fading him. 3% exposure, Fields at 10. Javonte Williams, 3% exposure, Fields at 9. It's a pretty decent fade on him. Certainly Javonte's gotten good box score results. Game environment should be good for Javonte, but I think Stochastic's preference to just say, hey, play Mason, play Walker. It's resulting in less Javonte overall. And AJ Brown, 1% exposure in Stochastic's top 150, Fields 7.5. So they are not going there. The Rams, are they playing man? Rams are playing man only 25% of the time-ish. Doesn't feel like an AJ Brown spot, but AJ Brown, I mean, Sim's hating him. Probably due for something. Certain point, AJ Brown won't be as bad as he's been, but seems like Stochastic thinks this is not the week. I'm going to go through the chats here. We got some requests. Drake Maye stacks. So Stochastic seemingly a bit down on Drake Maye, but he was in that one in the top 5. So let's see. Drake Maye. I mean, we read this one already. Maye, Pollard, Walker, Nakua, Puka is a better way to say that. JSN, Stephon Diggs, and Hunter Henry is a double with Christian McCaffrey and Jets D. Number 2 is Drake Maye, another double. Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, JSN, Remo Dunze, Diggs, and Hunter Henry again. Josh Jacob and Jets. And number 3 is Drake Maye, Jordan Mason, Kenneth Walker, CeeDee Lamb, JSN, Kayshon Boutte. I would frankly rather play Boutte over Diggs at this point, but based on results, probably a lot of people will feel that way. Hunter Henry, McCaffrey, and Raiders. At least they're double stacking Maye, I guess. But yeah, it's not a play for me, but there you go. Browning here. Jake Browning stacks. Oh, no. I should put in the full name here. All right, so none of the top 150 for Stochastic, but a single stack of Jake Browning, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Warren, Jamar Chase, Ricky Pearsall, Chris Olave, Chig Okonkwo, Kenneth Walker, Commanders D. It's odd to see this lineup be so far off the beaten path, but that's might be what wins you something, I guess. Number 2 is Browning unstacked. Browning, Bijan Robinson, Tony Pollard, Puka Nacua, DK Metcalf, Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Johnson, Kenneth Walker, Raiders D. And number 3 is a single stack with a bring back. If I'm going to play something, I'd want to play something like this. Browning, Jonathan Taylor, Jordan Mason, JSN, T. Higgins, Remo Dunze, Tyler Warren, Kenneth Walker, Packers D. So Mason has the bring back, Kenneth Walker chalk as well. But you're getting less zoned by having Browning to Higgins, basically. And I suppose Packers D as well. Stafford stack. Ugh. Stafford, Mason, Kenneth Walker, Puka, Devontae Adams. If you're going to play Stafford as your QB, I would want to play the premium double. Chris Olave, Trey McBride, Javonte Williams, Browns D. Number 2 is a triple stack. Stafford with Taylor, Pollard, Puka Nacua, JSN, Devontae Adams. Higbee makes this one. And Kenneth Walker, Browns D. Higbee was back to earth in terms of targets last week. Still wasn't as good as it looked last year, though. Oh, would I prefer Renfro to Ayumanor if Leggett sits? Yeah, I think at that point. I would prefer Leggett to Renfro theoretically because I think Leggett at a certain point has to be less awful. He's just not catching anything right now. And I think that's got to just get better. But, you know, if you lose Leggett, then, yeah, Renfro is going to be guaranteed a certain role. And he caught 2 touchdowns last week. So he'll probably get at least a red zone target, if not 2 in this game. Hurts stack. God, imagine Stochastic's not going to love that. Yeah, 2 in the top 150. Hurts, Mason, Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, JSN, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Kenneth Walker, Steelers. Hurts, Mason, Kenneth Walker again, AJ Brown, Drake London, Keenan Allen, Juwan Johnson, McCaffrey, Steelers. Big thing again is like you're just playing, if you're playing any unique stack, you can play Mason and Walker and the sim will be okay with that. If you're playing Chicago, Dallas, probably going to like it a little bit less. Dak, Caleb. It's going to be some of the last ones we look at, guys. A lot of Dak in the top 150. Dak is going to be very highly owned by Stochastic users. Dak, Mason, Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, JSN, Tet McMillan, Ferguson, Kenneth Walker, Steelers. So mixing in a lower-owned RB, mixing in a lower-owned receiver seems to be the way that the sim is tackling this. No bringbacks as well to probably decrease the ownership product a little bit, which is kind of tough. Dak, Bucky Irving in this one. Bucky Irving being a lower-owned piece. Jordan Mason, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens being a lower-owned piece. Cooper Kupp, also a lower-owned piece. Ferguson, part of the triple stack, though. Walker makes this one as well. Steelers D makes it again. All right, guys, I'm not going to do every QB for the record. Just if you got him in before, we're going to close it out with a couple more here. We already saw some Wentz stacks as well. Caleb single with the bring back. Caleb Bijan, Kenneth Walker, Mike Evans, Drake London, Rome Odunze, Juwan Johnson, Javonte Williams, and Steelers D. So a more unique bring back on this one, not your CeeDee Lambs, not even your Pickens or Jake Ferguson. You get Javonte Williams, the bring back. Number 2, single stack with no bring back. Caleb, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Mike Evans, Rome Odunze, Cooper Kupp making it a little bit more. Seems like when you're not getting JSN, the sim wants you to get Cooper Kupp slightly more. Hunter Henry, Kenneth Walker, Texans D. Let's see. Mr. Poopy Butthole wants Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, double stack. Jones, Bijan Robinson, Jordan Mason, Puka Nacua. Jerry Jeudy makes this one. Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren, Kenneth Walker, Colts D. I don't know about a double stack with the defense. That feels a little silly to me. Number 2, Daniel Jones, Josh Jacobs, Jordan Mason, Puka Nacua, JSN, Juwan Jennings, Tyler Warren, Kenneth Walker, Steelers D. Similar to the other stuff we've seen for other QBs. Geno Smith. Geno, and we'll look up Wentz one more time. We'll call it a day. Geno, Mason, Walker. So again, you have the lesser-owned QB. You can go with the chalky RBs. Ted McMillan, Jacoby Myers, Cooper Kupp. So we're also getting lesser-owned at receiver. Brock Bowers, pivot instead of Trey McBride. McCaffrey, Steelers. This is a nice little game theory lineup. Buying in after Geno busted his major chalk on Monday. Getting Bowers instead of McBride. You're still getting your chalk RBs and Mason, Walker, McCaffrey. I like Ted McMillan a lot. Again, if Bryce Young can stay afloat, I think Ted McMillan's the big winner here. That's a fun lineup for Geno. Number 2 is Geno again, double stacked. Bucky Irving, Tony Pollard. We got chalky receivers, though. JSN, DK Metcalf. Not Metcalf chalky, but JSN chalky. Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, Jordan Mason, Steelers. It's a pretty balanced chalk and non-chalk. And last but not least, I don't know why you're asking JJ with Bowers, but we'll do Wentz. We'll see if we get a Bowers lineup up top. All right, so this one has Wentz and Bowers. Wentz, Bijan, Mason, Jefferson, Pearsall, Olave, Bowers, Walker, Texans. That's a lineup. This one, Wentz, Bijan, Jordan Mason, Jefferson, JSN, Keenan Allen, Trey McBride, Walker, Titans. This feels like a lineup you would get on both Stochastic and ETR. And our last Wentz lineup here, Wentz, Mason, Walker, Jefferson, JSN, Cortland Sutton, TJ Hockenson, Christian McCaffrey, Steelers D. That is your number 2 ROI lineup, a triple stack with Carson Wentz. Our guy Nolan, who again is a great DFS player, so listen to him. Might be overthinking, but I'm beginning to think people think Dallas Chicago is going to be so overowned it actually ends up underowned. Yeah, and the Sims too seem to be really separating out Dallas Chicago builds a little bit more. It's possible. I still think the combo of like Dallas, like Dak plus CeeDee Lamb plus Odunze with Mason and Walker, I think that gets in there a lot. Like no matter what the Sims give you, I think that's how a lot of the hand builder guys will go today. We'll see though. But that's our final takes for the week, guys. Appreciate all you guys being here again. Make sure to check out Stochastic, 15% off. Really the most important way to support the show. Click that link down below. Sign up for a data package, a sim package. Even all you get is a single lineup sim. The cheap stuff, the expensive stuff, it's all 15% off, and it does support the show. So please click that link. Go over there to Stochastic. I, of course, will be on Stochastic today at 11:30 as well. So come tune in to watch me there on the Live Before Lock show. Going to try to frantically build my lineups now. Solver 2, link down below if you want to check out that product. Optimizer plus Sim with ETR data baked in. Another great tool to have in part of your weaponry here to build some quality DFS lineups. And join the channel, join the Discord. If you join the YouTube channel, click the link in the description. Get added to the Discord immediately. It's just $5 to join. You also get a premium stream every week where I go game by game looking at all my advanced data from sites like Sports Info Solutions. You also see me talking about everything in the Discord I possibly can. Other guys, great game theory takes as well in the Discord too. So join there, small community, but we are trying to make it so you got to pay something there so we get less assholes in, and it's been working well so far. So please join there and be a part of the Squirt Squad here. Make sure to gamble responsibly, guys, even though it is always money time here on this channel. Follow me at Chris Spags, follow the channel at SplashPlayPod, and I'll see you guys at 11:30, hopefully on Stochastic. So enjoy your days, guys. Good luck. And remember, jerk off Nader. I don't know. Remember to keep your tow trucks nicely de-rusted. And I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.